Thank you. Oh, great. Thank you. So this is the same one that we got before?
It's updated one. It's updated.
Thank you very much. And Tan, you talked to you over the weekend, huh?
Yes.
Okay. Could I have your attention, please? First of all, thank you for coming. I'm Sylvia Garcia, your Congresswoman. If y'all will please start taking your seat. This is the 1 minute warning. We're going to start in about 1 minute.
Can you give me another one? Thank you.
And Teresa, board member, just walked in.
Who?
Teresa Morales.
Oh, okay. Jose. See if she wants to make it.
Okay, I'll ask her, and then I'll let you know.
Because I don't see her. And we probably are letting let her on from the Congresswoman if she's here.
Yes.
Here she comes now.
I'll ask her.
Do you have talking points? No. Well, we have to add it.
Yes, sir.
Can I have your attention, please? We're going to get started. First, I'm going to make an announcement in Spanish. Si necesita ayuda a traducir porque hablan español, por favor, levanten la mano porque tenemos intérprete aquí. ¿Puede levantar su mano, señor? Pero necesita earphones, artículos. Si alguien necesita ayuda que habla español, levante su mano, por favor. Okay. ¿Usted, señor? Carla, you got it? Okay. Okay, we want to make sure that everybody can fully understand everything in their own language. Today, we were alerted that we would need Spanish. Regrettably, if anyone else needs another language, we'd have to make other arrangements. But first of all, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for coming tonight. I've gotten a lot of calls and I've gotten a lot of emails and texts about the Metro project, and I know that this is something that's really important to many of you, which is why the first thing that I wanted to do when I came home for my Easter recess, because we just got back from Washington, I told the staff, Monday, as soon as we get back, let's have a town hall so that we can sit down with Metro and ask questions and get some answers and get an idea of a better understanding of the project itself. Now, I understand that Metro has had a number of meetings already. I know they've been working together with the Civic Club and other stakeholders on this project. So if it's a little repetitious, please forgive us, because I've asked them to just explain it like we don't know anything, because we want to know everything. And the only way to do that is to just allow them to come, and they're going to show us a map, they're going to show us some schematics, and we'll be able to do Q&A. My goal is to have us out of here in about an hour and a half, because I know we're approaching the dinner hour, and I'm sure your stomachs will start growling in a few minutes. But with that, I want to introduce first the leadership from the Civic Club, who has been working real hard on this issue, and I know you all know her, and that is Danielle. So Danielle, you want to speak from there, or you want to come up? Absolutely.
Good evening, everyone. It's been 13 days since I was at this podium. My name's Danielle Laperriere. I'm the president of the Eastwood Civic Association, and I want to begin with a few thank yous. First, to the Congresswoman and her staff who arranged this town hall and invited us to support it, knowing that this community still needed and deserved to provide input on this project. And although I thank you later in my speech as well, I also want to call her out for the formal letter of support that she provided the neighborhood when we requested a delay in the vote on the locally preferred alternative. It was the first we received, and it was powerful. Its powerful tone that you understood that this neighborhood had concerns that deserved more time to be addressed. Thank you. I also feel that it's important to call out Councilmember Gallegos and his office, who has heightened the concerns of this neighborhood when he stopped on the Esplanade and asked questions as we erected signs that told people about this project. It was an awkward pause for me. He then proceeded by organizing the first town hall where many of you joined me 13 days ago and made some pretty impassioned remarks to the Metro board. Not last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago. It's 10 days, I think. Councilmember Gallegos, your support over the last several weeks is deeply appreciated. I also want to thank those who supported the delay in the LPA vote 10 days ago. So that includes Councilmember Gallegos and Congresswoman Garcia, but it also includes Commissioner Adrian Garcia, State Senator Carol Alvarado, State Representative Christina Morales, at-large Councilmember Sally Acorn, the East End District, and Link Houston. If one thing was clear at that vote, it was that our elected officials heard our plea for more time. I also owe a deep thank you and gratitude to Metro board, leadership, staff, and consultants for the work and dialogue that's happened since that vote. You put in long hours, and we've had really difficult conversations to try to bring a better design to the table and help us better understand why some options don't make sense. Thank you for meaningfully engaging with us. We spent a lot of hours together in the last week. But my biggest thank you of the night goes to the residents of Greater Eastwood. I've witnessed the immense love you hold for this neighborhood. I hold it too. I've seen you come out en masse for public meetings, knock on doors, set up petitions, submit thoughtful comments expressing your concerns about this project, written and delivered speeches that sometimes brought me to tears, volunteered your professional skills, or donned reflective clothing to clean up our Esplanade. But most meaningfully to me has been the respectful conversations you've taken the time to have with me as you express concerns about this project and what alternatives you would want to see or what you could live with. We don't all agree on alternatives, but you shared with me your opinions and then listened wholeheartedly when I expressed my personal ones too. That two-way listening is what being a good neighbor means to me, and those are my most cherished moments over the past several months. I've asked a lot of you over the last month, and you've delivered in immeasurable ways, but I'm asking for more right now. I'm calling on the neighborhood to extend those respective conversations to everyone in the room tonight as we hear new information from Metro. 13 days ago, we expressed our anger and frustration with a project that was slated to bring an overpass through the center of our neighborhood. 13 days ago, we felt like no one was listening, and we held no power to change it. 13 days ago, many people saw an overpass through Eastwood as a foregone conclusion. That's not where we are today. There has been listening from Metro and our elected officials, and there has been work to try to find alternatives that address neighborhoods' concerns. To keep the conversations moving forward towards solutions, I ask that you listen to the new information today and then ask questions and express your opinions. I think there are reasons to be hopeful in some new design elements, but having had the privilege of being part of these discussions last week, I know it doesn't address all of the neighborhood's concerns. I'm here tonight to listen to your feedback, and I look forward to seeing where we go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for your hard work, and thank you to all of you who have been participating throughout this process. You know, the words that she said in her closing, that we're here to listen, really is what this is all about. And for me, you know, I listen for another reason, because federal dollars are involved in this project. Federal dollars to the tune of $150 million in funding for this university corridor. So it's important to me, not just as your member of Congress, but also someone in Congress who has oversight on the spending of those dollars. Because we really just don't write a check and give the money to Metro. We have an oversight responsibility to make sure that they spend the money effectively, that they spend the money as indicated by Congress. So when I hear about issues, and thank you all of you who called or emailed us, then that's the time that we need to take action. And, you know, I was standing with Mr. Lambert, probably 3 months ago, when we also talked about the dollars that we sent for the electric buses. And we also sent money to get them past the pandemic to the tune of $300 million to help them to protect their payroll, to make sure that their employees didn't get laid off. So our interest is more than just passing and bringing home dollars. It's about making sure that Metro listens, that Metro is truly engaging the community in a process. So that's why I was happy to write that letter and was happy to host this tonight. But I don't do it alone. I have a great staff, and I know I want to acknowledge our board member that's here with us today, Teresa Morales, who is on the board of Metro. Terry, you want to stand up? She too is here to listen. And of course, we have Joaquin Martinez from Councilmember Gallego's office. Where are you, Joaquin? Thank you. And thank the council member for all the work that he's done on this project, because it really is going to take all of us working together to make sure that Metro does what we want it to do, and to do it in a way that spends the federal dollars wisely, but also takes care of the neighborhoods. So with that, I want to pass the baton over to Tom Lambert, who is, I first knew him as chief when I was a judge, but now he's the CEO of Metro, to say a few words and introduce the Team Metro, who will go through a slide presentation, and then afterwards we'll do the Q&A. Tom?
Thank you, Congresswoman. I want to again, let me thank the Congresswoman for everything she does to make sure we're getting federal dollars to really benefit our community. So Congresswoman, thank you for that very much. I want to thank the president of the Eastwood Civic Association, Danielle, and all the board members that worked with us over the past 13 days. It has been a very cooperative discussion. But this all came from your discussion with us a couple of weeks ago. It was clearly your passion that you wanted to make sure whatever project we were going to deliver, not just the 25.3 mile project, but how it impacted this neighborhood. And as Danielle told you, the board of directors listened. They listened intently and they challenged the staff to work with the neighborhood association to come back with an action that actually brought benefit back to the neighborhood while we're still trying to accomplish all the things we're accomplishing. I think you'll hear tonight that we've had some good trade-offs. I'm not sure we're at 100% where we need to be, but I think you'll see there's a commitment going forward as we move this project along to make sure that it brings value to the neighborhood, it brings value to the region, and accomplishes everything we're trying to move upon to make sure we have multimodal opportunities for people to grow and move in this region by the tremendous growth we're going to see. So I'm not going to take a lot of time. We're here to kind of update you where we're at on the working sessions we've had with the leadership of the neighborhood association. And we're here to answer questions, and we'll be here to make sure we're being responsive to the issues you have tonight. So Congresswoman, thank you. And I want to introduce now Mr. Shri Reddy. Shri's the Executive Vice President of Planning, Engineering, Construction for Metro. He'll walk you through the discussions we've had thus far, where we're at today, and we'll be prepared to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert and Congresswoman Garcia and the Eastwood Civic Association. It's good to be back here. I know it was a difficult conversation last time, but I think we did a lot of listening, a lot of reflecting. We worked with the Civic Association. Some of our team members are here, so we're here to share the results, specifically first, the underpass that we're proposing. So we had some grade separation options, including what you had seen previously. We want to basically contrast that from what we're proposing now, which is a much smaller underpass. We're going to basically also get into the question that was asked about why Lockwood, what other alternatives are there? Have you looked at those alternatives? And then I think the community also specifically asked us to look at a version of the current alignment with a reroute, if you will. So we looked at all of those, and we'll share the results of those with you. And then we'll discuss next steps, public engagement, and you've heard this from the chair, from the board. Public engagement, something we're going to do throughout the entire project. This is not the beginning or the end. This is just the beginning, I would say. We want to involve the community because I think that's the best way we can build a good project that we can all be proud of. And then we'll take questions. We've made an attempt to basically put all the new information that we generated in the last week on the website, the Metro website. We're going to basically take your suggestions, any other questions, and try to put all that information also on the website so you all can understand what we know about what is being proposed. Obviously, we heard very loud and clear that an overpass is not what you want. So we basically had looked at an underpass option, a full grade separation of an underpass option, which basically has a lot of right-of-way takes and a big drainage issue. And after discussion with the work group on Monday of last week, what we basically took away was an action to look at a smaller version of the underpass. And what we basically want to do is to kind of share that with you. This is really the limits of the previous plan, where you start at basically Polk, and then you actually go end in Sherman. It's pretty long and wide, and we're not going with that particular option. We're going basically with a much smaller version of the underpass, basically. It starts just north of Polk, and then it comes up at the Harrisburg Green Line. So it goes under the UPRR tracks. It's much narrower, and we'll get into the details in a little bit. This is what it looks like if you look at it from the curb side, and if you were able to cut a section through it. It's basically, if you look at the right side of the screen, that's the Harrisburg Green Line, where the grades are set by the green line. That's where the underpass would start. And it goes about 17 feet below the railroad, and then comes back up to what's shown as AA, and I'll explain a little bit about what that AA section is really. What we're basically doing is grade separating the BRT lines. It's 2 lanes each way, 1 lane each way. And then we're also taking the bicycles and the pedestrians under the UPRR tracks with the general purpose lanes at grade as they are today. If you look at this drawing, there's a lot of information in here, and I'm going to try to methodically kind of go over this. You have heard a lot about the floodplain and just what the region's been expecting and experiencing in the last so many years about, especially with Harvey and everything else. The 100-year floodplain as mapped by the Harris County Flood Control District, which is the new standard, is shown on the map. If you look at where the crest is over here on this side of the drawing, the 100-year floodplain basically matches up with that. So if you look at Lockwood on the right side, the 100-year floodplain is about 2.5 feet higher than the pavement. So if you were to have a 100-year flood, as defined by the Harris County Flood Control, you would expect water to get up to that point. So one of the suggestions we actually got from the community was, why don't you look at floodgates? And I thought it was a great idea. We actually looked at it, and we incorporated that into the design. So there will be a floodgate across the BRT lanes and the bike and ped. It's a much smaller area to control. The floodgate's going to basically put up anytime the water in the underpass gets over 8 inches of water. So it'll be only metro operations in that underpass. It'll be a lot easier to control. And Metro PD and metro operations are committed to making sure it's put up based on what we actually see in the underpass in terms of how well the pumps are working and how long the rain event is. And then the flip side of it is also, when do you actually take that floodgate down and resume operations? That's another decision that needs to be made by our resources who are experienced. That would be MPD and operations. During the time that the underpass is not operational, we're going to basically have the BRT go around the underpass, and they're going to basically use the general purpose lanes at grade like it is today. So in terms of trade-offs, we have come to the table and we felt like we can manage this risk by doing 2 things. 1, putting the floodgate up. 2, by putting more resources on the ground so we can actually manage the events more efficiently and not have to basically reroute more than when it's necessary. Just a little bit of information. I think there were a lot of questions about, what would this project do in terms of the floodplain? Would it change? I think this makes it better for you on the south side. If you live on the south side, that particular hump that you see over here right under the A, we're going to design that so the 100-year flood never really crosses that point. So in the worst case scenario of the new 100-year flood, which is what the Harris County Flood Control requires everybody to design to, water might enter the underpass. Even if the pumps fail, you're going to have water stay at that point. Obviously, we cannot design for the type of events that we've never ever looked at before, even worse than Harvey. So that is the design that we're proposing. We're trying to basically make sure our operations can reroute, and then we can basically make the drainage manageable. At the same time, the right-of-way needed for this option basically is very, very minimal. It's nothing to do with the underpass. It's only to do with ADA accessibility of sidewalk right by the property line. So there are some locations where we want to basically do corner clips to be able to actually make sure the sidewalk is accessible. These are sections basically as you go south from Lockwood and come down all the way under UPRR and then come back up. This is what the sections look like. The very first one, the top left, is really Lockwood Drive south of Walker. You're going to basically see the BRT and then the general purpose lane on each side. The reason why the BRT is up is because I'd spoken about this ground hump there that we're trying to create to insulate water from getting south of that point. That's why you'll see the BRT a little higher than what you would expect typically on the rest of the project. It's purely a drainage function. And then if you go to the right, you will see the top right. That's the typical section as you're coming down into the underpass halfway through, with the add-grade section on either side. In every one of these scenarios, we want to basically also, unrelated to the underpass, we want to create pedestrian realms on both sides. So you've got add-grade general purpose lanes, you got a safety buffer, you've got wider sidewalks, so you can actually have a safe place to walk compared to what you see today. And then the last section here is right under the UPRR. We're going to be below UPRR. You got 2 BRT lanes, you've got emergency access on both sides, and then you've got basically bike and ped space. I think that was one of the suggestions we got from the community, to carry bike and peds and make sure they have a safe crossing and not have to cross at grade today like they do today. And if it's appropriate here, we can take some questions, or we can run through the rest of the presentation. Congresswoman, because I think there are 2 parts to this. Sure.
I mean, don't you all agree?
Yes.
So I think, so 2 things I wanted to basically speak about is we did look at a number of different routes, and we're trying to get from Eastwood Transit Center, which is a major hub, all the way up to Tidwell. So many different things that we've looked at, we'd like to share here. We've basically looked at 5 different routes. We looked at Jensen, we looked at Scott, we looked at Hirsch, obviously we looked at Lockwood, we looked at Homestead and Wayside, and there's another option that I believe it's Scott. Okay, Scott is one of the newer options that the community actually asked us to look. And we put it through the analysis that we typically do for the Federal Transit Administration. They've got guidance and a little bit of more information about this. This is really, these are all the criteria that we might have mentioned a couple of weeks ago, but again, for your information, this is how they scored. Jensen, Hirsch, Scott, Lockwood, Homestead, and Wayside. And it starts with land use, population density, employment density. There are historic sites and parks and cemeteries, obviously, along the way, so that does factor into the equation. Right-of-way is a big piece. Our whole paradigm is to try to minimize the amount of right-of-way need for the project. And then the amount of running time, because running time has everything to do with ridership and people riding the line. We want to basically reduce run time, ridership, and propensity for people to ride. Look at our existing route and what data we have in front of us, and projections for the future too. And then overall capital costs. Obviously, the longer the route is, the costs go up. So we try to keep it as straight as possible and not do detours, because that just adds to the route and the amount of expense. And then annual operating costs. This is one of those departures from a lot of the other projects that you see in and around the Houston area. When you go for a competitive grant, they want to know what the operating cost is. And it comes out to be almost equal to, over 30 years, the initial capital costs. So that's also a factor. Anytime you basically have a longer route, you're going to basically have to increase your operating costs. So these are what the scores are overall, basically, in terms of how these alignments did. And we scored them, and this is where I think I'm going to ask David just to clarify, just to make sure we're all very clear. We basically, the numbers 1 through 10, can you come up here, David, and kind of explain a little bit more detail on what these numbers mean, so it's clear to everyone? Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri. So in this case, the lower number is the better.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, sure. I'm David Leard. I'm with HNTB. We're the consultant to Metro on the Metro Next program, and I am the program director for the consultant team. Thank you. So for this evaluation, the lower score is the better score. So we ranked them from 1 to 5, with 1 being best, 5 being worse. For the three criteria that are most impact the rating and NEPA, so that was right away, ridership, and capital costs, we doubled those criteria. So we weighted those because they were the most important ones. And you can see the evaluation. Lockwood came out the best. Jensen came out number 2, and then the others accordingly. One of the things that Metro is doing, kind of on a parallel effort, is going to be working on the Jensen project for potential, not for a BRT, but for some enhanced transit service, because it did perform pretty strong here.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I just want to make sure the basis is clear, because it's not intuitive until David explains it. So essentially, overall, when you do the analysis, Lockwood scores significantly better, especially when you weight it. And for that reason, that's why we are really picking Lockwood and recommending to the board that Lockwood be part of the locally preferred alternative. And earlier on in the presentation, I talked about drainage. I just wanted to basically emphasize that this project, although it's a transit project, it's all about infrastructure. And the infrastructure piece is about 80% of it. And the transit piece is only about 20% if you look at the amount of capital cost. So you're looking at green spaces, you're looking at urban design, you're looking at sidewalks, you're looking at lighting, drainage systems that are improved, that have not been touched for a long time. So it's a lot more than just for transit. So if you're not a transit rider, and we say that in a lot of these speaking engagements, you should still be recognizing the benefit that this particular project will bring to the corridor that it travels in. And on to the next steps. Basically, what I mentioned, the locally preferred alternative. It's basically approving the route. The board had basically, Mr. Lambert has made a commitment that he's not going to recommend the overpass. We're going to carry the underpass in our work moving forward. But the locally preferred alternative is going to be presented to the board for consideration in a couple of days. I believe it's on Wednesday. And then the most important thing after that really is to continue public outreach. And I'd mentioned this before. We really want to work with the community. We've seen how engaged you are, and we're very encouraged by that. I can tell you that it was difficult to be in the meeting last couple of weeks, but that doesn't deter us. We actually welcome participation. And as the Eastwood Civic Association shown, there are a lot of individuals with very good ideas that we'd like to harness those ideas and work with you. A request was made about a 3D animation. I think all the public engagement we've done so far, the animation's been kind of from a top view. We're working on a 3D animation from the curb side. So if you're walking down the sidewalk, we want you to be able to see as to what the project would look like. I think it gets you a much better feel for the scale of things and then, what is being proposed. We want to basically work with the community on a tree mitigation plan. We had some initial discussions about not doing just what the city requires, but going above and beyond that, making an investment on Park Drive, making an investment along Lockwood, and there are probably other areas in the community where you'd like to see trees being planted. So there will be some tree loss, obviously, in the median. That is something we cannot avoid, but we want to make sure we're mindful about what that loss is. A question was also asked, I think Congresswoman asked this question, can we replant them? Can we move them? But there's some risk associated with those. We'll look at every option to see if we can save those trees. And if we cannot, then we want to put new trees in their place where you would like them. And then urban design and placemaking. A lot of previous projects either did not have the budget or we didn't have the vision in place. We do have a vision in place now. We have an urban design manual, and we have actually got resources now in-house to champion that. So we'd like to work with the community to basically determine what you would like to see in terms of urban design. We have options to present to you. And so Metro makes the commitment to make sure urban design is not only just a concept, but it's funded and we're going to carry through our commitment and to make sure this is a project that we can all be proud of. These are some of the examples you might have seen in the public meetings about what can be done at the stations, and not just stations, but anything else on the project. You know, there are a number of different things that can be done. We want to work with you on that, look at different examples from not only this Houston, but elsewhere as to how we can make this inviting and something we can be all proud of. That's all I had.
That was a long answer to the question, but we have plenty of time for questions. This is Chris, my district director. There's also a couple of other members of my team. I think you were given a card if you wanted to ask a question. So please just raise your hand and we'll get the microphone to you. Please stay on topic, and we prefer a question rather than a long statement of opinion, because that just takes, it eats up a lot of time. So who's ready for a question? They're trying to get the microphones in order. Just
Test, test, test.
okay, they're both on low battery. But please ask your question, just raise your voice. I know you can. I've been in meetings before with you, so. No, please stand up and just, yeah, without a microphone. Yeah.
I guess my first question is, hi, my name is Joseph Tiaria, live in the neighborhood. I want to know what the houses are. Have you all asked the residents along Lockwood, what's their options in the future with all this traffic going through their bridge and transportation? There's a lot of warehouse traffic, truck traffic that we all know, that we live here, that's how the road is cleaned up. But now we're gonna have this monstrous overpass. What's gonna happen?
No, the alternative is no longer the overpass, it's under.
Let's talk about the underpass, all right?
So I don't know that they're going to hear a lot of traffic because it's all going to be under. It's going to be like a tunnel,
I got you.
okay?
But the homes next to Lockwood, what's
Right.
gonna happen to those residents? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
All right, so Shri or Mr. Lambert, who?
I can start it off. So, yeah, so the key thing that I want to repeat is we're not impacting any of the real estate. So if the houses that are there today, what's going to be in front of them is a wider sidewalk and a buffer zone. So you're not going to see any changes on your property. You'll have sidewalk that's accessible in front of the property. In terms of the difference between what you see today, you've got 2 lanes in front of the property. You'll see one general purpose line, then you're going to see the underpass right next to it in the center. I hope that answers your question.
Before I recognize the next person, I just wanted to recognize that Roberto Trevino is also here, a board member. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Did we get the microphone issue resolved? Okay. Who wants to be next? And we'll have to speak. Right here, Ben.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Alma Vasquez, and I have 2 children at Project Chrysalis. And the question I have is I would like to, well, I'll move with the question, but I would like to see how Ernestine will look like for the crossing. I have no visual of the street, how it will look, and I would like for Metro to have the conversations with the principal. I don't know yet if Metro has met with the new principal at the last meeting on March 8th. I mentioned to Mr. David, sorry, Mr. Martin. I mentioned to David that there was a new principal and I wanted for the communication to begin with Project Chrysalis. And I also would like to see what the intersection would look like for Austin High School and Lockwood for the students.
Okay, well, we'll start with Shri and then we'll bunt to David if we need help.
And thank you for bringing it up, ma'am. We did take notes in the last meeting. That was one of the actions. Two things we're going to do. One is extend that animation. You can actually see what might be built there, so you get a better sense. And then the more important thing is to reach out. We're going to reach out again to the school and understand their needs and then have that coordination again. I think we've done that before, but with the new principal, I think it would make sense to do that again.
David, did you need to add anything? Okay, great. Next one. Right here, sir.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to address the leadership here. We've got several questions. One is regarding the spreadsheet that you laid out there on rankings. And I know that you mentioned for your NEPA considerations that the ridership, right-of-way, and costs, operating costs, were top part of the consideration. Why wasn't the neighborhood given more weight? The impact of the neighborhood given more weight in your overall score? Because you covered a lot of territory, and like I said, I have a lot of questions. I'm going to ask all of them. I'll do that later. But you mentioned placement. Well, Eastwood is already a great place for a neighborhood of folks to raise families. So hopefully, with the right option, maybe a different route. I know that Lockwood looked to me regarding the scoring that you had on there to be the most cost efficient or beneficial in your spreadsheet. Jensen and maybe one or two others are close by. But the impact of this neighborhood is going to be devastating regarding whether it's an overpass or an underpass. So anyway, were your rankings, were you able to rank or weight, given the neighborhood association more weight than the other criteria?
I'm going to ask David and see if David could take that question.
Thank you. So we did evaluate land uses, those kind of things. And I mean, one thing that we consider as you kind of go through impacts to the neighborhoods are pretty consistent. The impact to Eastwood could be argued against an impact to another community might have a similar feeling. So we tried to look at overall just general rankings and not try to give one neighborhood a more priority than another neighborhood, because I'm not really sure how you make those measurements. Another thing to remember is, as Shri touched on with other improvements, there are a lot of other improvements that Lockwood will benefit from, sidewalks, drainage, and so forth, that also hopefully will make this, when we're done, I understand there will be an underpass there, but hopefully it'll be a better place to walk, a safe place for your children to cross the street, and so forth. Thank you.
The lady right there to. Hi, Audrey.
I'm still going to have a wall. We're still not going to be able to stop. We're still going to bifurcate the neighborhood, even if it's in the past. That chart with all the numbers on it, it doesn't make sense. We have no idea how you generate the numbers. Nothing. This is still impacting the neighborhood negatively. I don't see meaningful action. For instance, why is Leard Road considered? Why isn't Spur 5 and 90 considered south of 45 if the idea is to connect Red Train University to neighborhoods on the wayside? There just seems to be so many other things that could potentially work that we're not looking at. I'm also concerned with the way we've gotten the information. So much of the information seems to be made up on the fly. Like that chart with the numbers, we have no idea where everything is.
All right. Did you have a question, ma'am, or what was your, right, other than the 6 that were outlined? Okay. Shri?
I believe we did look at the other route. They're all major roads. That the first thing we'll look at is to make sure it's at least 80 feet or more and wider. And so I think we did start with that thought process. That's how we came up with the list of 6 routes.
Can you name some of the other ones that you did consider before you narrowed it to the 6?
Can you bring the chart back up?
Yeah, we can.
No, what I asked him was if he could name some of the others that were considered before they narrowed it to the 6, because I think that's your question. Okay. No, she was talking about the list of the 6. Oh, this is the chart.
So I think the key item is we're trying to basically, I think this question was asked about, why can't we take a detour? And all the experience we've had basically looking at alignments and is the shortest route is typically the best route, the shortest time frame. And so our effort's always been to basically straighten out the route as much as possible. So we looked at all different ways to connect Eastwood to Tidwell Transit Center. So we looked at, I think we were talking to our service planning folks. We got about 3,500 riders per day on the 80 Lockwood today. It's in that range. So there are quite a few people riding. It might not be specifically in one stop or a location, but MLK and Lockwood is in that range. 3,500 per day, sorry. This is throughout the whole day.
No, let's have some order, please. Let's remember to be respectful. He said 3,500 throughout the day. And I'm sure that Metro has a way of measuring this. I'm sorry that some of you may feel that's inaccurate, but that's sort of a collateral issue. What we need to do is stay focused on this. And my question had been, which others had you all looked at before you narrowed it down to 6?
If I could ask David to share.
David, could you just tell us like what others you did look at before you narrowed it down to these 6 that are on the board?
Sure. So the question, so this original alignment came from the Metro Next studies that were done in 2017. And those evaluated several different transit improvements across the region. So for the northeast quadrant, the Lockwood alignment was evaluated against these other alignments to connect these major components. There are other services that run on 90 and other routes, major thoroughfares and other routes in the community. But in the northeast quadrant, Lockwood was evaluated, and then we went back and did a further evaluation of these other 6 routes. So again, we're trying to serve a specific travel market, and the way to serve the specific travel market is through some of the major arterials that operate in that travel market. To go on other streets, 5 or other places don't serve that market. They serve different markets, and they will have alternatives that serve those markets as well. Again, Metro Next is over 500 miles of total services.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mhm.
Just recently, the Eastwood Civic Association received, and I think that's from their site, oh, thank you. Okay, just recently, do y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay, I don't like that. If you don't mind, I'll speak up so you can hear me. So just recently, the ECA received and was made available to us on their site, the Lockwood Drive Alternatives Analysis. And that was very recently, and I went through it just recently. And it's very poorly and confusingly written document. I don't know whether it was thrown together at the last minute or how it was done, but it's next to impossible to follow anything that they're talking about here. And I'm a project manager. I've been a project manager for many years. I'm PMI certified. I know how to read documents with respect to a project. There's nothing, it talks about, for example, not the ridership being relative to the frequency of each route, nothing about the frequency of routes, the route is there. The sides of the equation that you would need in order to understand this aren't here. The only figures that are stated in here are stated specifically to be 2019. Now, Mr. Leard tells us something about 2017. There's no reference to compare with. So we can see, according to this document, that it's 2019. Well, what about the most recent ridership? You know, they're just, so that's why I say, that's the reason why when we see these numbers, we are unable to trust them. Because in the past, we haven't gotten any real meat behind the stuff, the information, the pictures that we've been given. We've been given a reverse out across the city in different colors, and then we were told that we had reviewed the route. But what then was very recently revealed to us is that we were scheduled for an overpass, now it's an underpass. We were told that any neighborhood that this project would go through would have similar concerns. So I would like to know, for one thing, how many residential neighborhoods is this thing going through with an underpass or an overpass? Because when I see the pictures of the BRT line, I don't mind it, you know, and I'm also for public transportation. The problem is you've got a strictly residential neighborhood that you scared the whole mess out of us because you showed us this overpass. The underpass is, at least it's not an overpass. Underpass is not an overpass, but it's still a gouge through our neighborhood. It's gonna cut us apart. It's gonna significantly change the character of this neighborhood. And even with that very poor alternative, and I'm sorry, but I won't be bought off with the idea that then we get good drainage and sidewalks. Frankly, we deserve good drainage and sidewalks anyway.
Well, let's hope Joaquin Martinez is listening. But you want to answer her question?
So again, I'm going to go back to his question then, further with my comments. How did you choose our residential neighborhood?
And then she also asked how many neighborhoods we're going to have the over-under issue throughout the line.
I think there are actually 3 other overpasses that were planned at Hirsch Road, at Clinton, and Bennington. And specifically, but we'll have to go back and look, David. I don't know if you off the top of your head, if you can provide that information.
Congresswoman Garcia, but I would really appreciate your help in this, because I'm also, I want to remain calm, and I am calm, you know, I'm just a little fluttered.
You look great.
I ask a specific question.
Sure.
That is, how many other residential
Right.
neighborhoods?
And I think you deferred to David to see if David knew. I mean, he talked about other overpasses, so let's give him a chance. So David, do you recall any of the ones he mentioned
Yeah,
actually go through residential areas?
Yeah, so the Bennington is a residential with schools, so it's a little bit more mixed, but again, the overpasses are due to the railroad tracks. We're going over where the railroad tracks are.
We know why they're
Yeah.
needed.
So Bennington is the closest one. There are homes adjacent.
What about
to the
Hirsch
line.
Road?
Hirsch is commercial
Commercial,
and Clinton is industrial.
industrial. Okay, so one other. Was that,
It answers the question, but not the underlying concern.
okay. Got it. Right there with a cap on.
My name is Patricia Rodriguez. I represent the Residents Organization. And I actually went to the first meeting last year at HCC. Of course, it was all lucky because it was last minute. I was able to go. Maybe at the most 12 to 15 people were there. And so that's where I saw these, this is where I saw these plans. And it was obvious that you would need to get some land on the site. So, yeah, since I was one of the few there, I was able to
spent about 45 minutes with the representative from Metro. And she admitted that the possibility of eminent domain is a possibility, but that's why we were there to get, quote, input. Now, again, I was one maybe of 12, 15 people. Metro's known not to do outreach well. And when I saw these plans, I'm like, wait until the Eastwood Civic Club finds out about this. So biding my time, I want to thank y'all, the Eastwood Civic Club, for, again, leading the charge in the East End, and that the people in Second Ward, we are with you. And this is the first time I see that those other 5 alternatives. So I'm pretty confident in saying that I think I can speak with my neighbors and hopefully lobby for the change from Lockwood to Jensen, because Jensen is commercial. You have East River across the street. You would probably get a welcome support from the East River Development Company across. The folks there at the school at Our Lady of Guadalupe, as long as they're in the loop, I'm sure they would appreciate the possibility for their junior high kids to start to use the mass transit along with their parents. But my main thing when I went to that meeting last year, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, it goes down navigation in Lockwood. And I asked the same representative, and I must say, I appreciate their patience with me. Like I said, I was able to spend almost an hour with them. I said, look, you know, y'all do realize that you've got 18-wheelers going down navigation. That's the East End. And have y'all guys talked to the ship channel? She said no. And I'm like, typical Metro. Hasn't changed, not since the light rail. So again, if you move it down Jensen, you won't have to deal with the 18-wheelers, because that's going to grow. Because as you well know, Congresswoman, that business there in the ship channel, it's going to grow, because that ship channel is going to be deeper. We're going to have bigger ships. We're going to have intermodal. Thank you, Lord, because a lot of your constituents have jobs through the ship channel. I know a lot of small businessmen, Hispanics, who for the first time are getting contracts, substantial contracts. And so, while we welcome Metro coming in and we support mass transit, I really hope that there's a change in the culture where they come to us first, instead of, you know, just bringing in the consultants saying, okay, here you go, this is where the numbers are, and then coming to us. Because there simply is no logic of doing this type of project down a residential down Eastwood, because their property values are going to go down, just as the property values of all the property down Harrisburg went down because of light rail. So can you tell me if that is a possibility of perhaps coming to some sort of compromise? Because this is the first time I saw those other alternatives. Those
What
alternatives
is
are
the
not presented to us.
compromise that you're
Picking
putting on the
another one
table?
other than Lockwood.
Because
Jensen.
I believe that their compromise was going from over to under.
Okay, that's according to y'all. That's according to y'all, Metro. That's good. Now let's keep
No,
on negotiating.
I'm not Metro, ma'am. Don't
I
say
know.
y'all to
You're the
me. I am
congresswoman.
not
You
Metro.
represent us in front of the Fed, because this is federal money. So I'm just letting you know
Okay.
that, you know, Second Ward people, we're going to go to our Senate representatives as well as you with a petition saying, let's move it to Jensen. It probably at the front, I see it'll be
All right.
cheaper.
All right. Well, thank you for your question. And Shri, will you all consider Jensen again?
I think we've, with all due respect, I mean, we've looked at it. I know that's not what you want to hear, but we've looked at each one of these alternatives already and studied them. And these are the parameters we use. I think we've been kind of open about what goes into it. It's not just one single item or one single traffic generator or one school. It's a number of different factors. And I think we've done a pretty thorough analysis. And if you look at the data, there's no one outstanding option by far. So,
Okay, let's be calm and have order. He's trying to answer a question. You may not like the answer, but he's trying to answer, so just give him a chance to finish.
just to kind of complete the answer, we've looked at the analysis, including Jensen, and we believe that Lockwood's the best option there.
Can I have two cards that people have sent up front? One says, when you say no real estate impacted, just under sidewalks and walls, where are you gaining the land on Lockwood? Mhm.
The Lockwood, actually, if you go back to the slide here, I can answer this question. If you look at the right of way here, it's about 100 feet from right of way to right of way. And what we're basically planning is one general purpose lane, you got the pedestrian space, you got BRT lanes and the sidewalks. All that fits within the 100 feet. So we do not really need any right of way to be able to build the lanes or the sidewalks. Hopefully that answers your question. In terms of ADA accessibility, when the sidewalks go around the property corners, there are some places where we might need some corner clips. We're analyzing that right now.
And the second card is, will Metro put in writing that an overpass is off the table now and in the future? Should any construction challenges be faced, what assurances can be given to the community that this won't happen?
The short answer is yes, but I'm going to let Mr. Lambert speak.
The question was, what assurances do we have that the overpass is completely off the table and that it won't raise its ugly head again if they run into any construction challenges?
We're going to be recommending directly to the Metro Board of Directors that the overpass is off the table. One of the things we also looked at was the environmental concerns. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the Harrisburg overpass. The reality is when we looked at saying we were going to go from an underpass or from an overpass to an underpass, the reality is there were environmental issues that we should have known before we made that commitment. That's the truth. This time, I asked the staff, the consultants, the engineers, do we have any concerns that we have any environmental impacts that preclude us from building this underpass? The feedback I've gotten is there's no concern going forward, so I see no need to say we can't deliver that. But that's a board decision. The staff is going to make it very clear that's not going to be our recommendation. There's no environmental concerns. We've got a 100-foot right-of-way to do it. We expect to build an underpass going forward. I want to make two other comments, and I don't want to be argumentative because I think this has been a very, very good meeting. A couple of comments about ridership. I didn't want to engage to slow the discussion down, but we do have automated passenger counters on all of our buses, on all of our trains. So when the staff says we've got 3,500 riders a day, we track that by persons loading on the bus and exiting the bus. Every month at the Metro board meeting, we give ridership numbers. If you go to ridemetro.org, you can watch the communities, but we also have monthly reports on ridership. So please go to look at that. The second point about light rail impacting negatively property values. In 2017, and this is the last time it was done, so the data is not current. So I want to say that up front. The Harris County Appraisal District did an evaluation of property values along the rail corridors, and those about a quarter of a mile off a rail, the property values were up 25% by the Harris County Appraisal District. So that's their numbers, not Metro numbers, but that was 2017 data. It may be different today.
Okay, now we're back to questions from the audience, and I think this gentleman in orange has had his hand up for a while.
Couple quick questions. One, it doesn't seem like we're. Thanks. It doesn't seem like we're addressing the root cause, and what it appears to be the root cause is the rail line. We all have been dealing with that recently, where there's been a lot of trains that have been stopped on the tracks on there. That seems like it's the main issue for us and why you guys want to have the underpass on there. Why are we not addressing why there are more trains stopping now? I know that there's a lot more cargo going on there. Second question, why not a light rail versus the buses? If this was addressed in the last meeting, I apologize because I wasn't there. Third, what's the timeline on this? How long would it take? And is it going to run in concurrence with the highway projects that are going to be going on downtown? Because living in Second Ward, I'm afraid I'm going to be getting locked in. I've already had multiple spots where it makes it difficult to get out of my neighborhood because of all the different infrastructure projects. Will it be going on at the same time on that? Those are my main questions.
Great. I'll let them respond to the railroads, but please know that we have been trying to address the the crossings and the delays and blocking streets. I've had the FRA administrator down here twice for town hall meetings, both here in the East End and in Denver Harbor. We have a pilot project already working with City of Houston and first responders so that they can call dispatch from UP directly to dispatch HPD or HFD to let them know when the train's coming that may block their area. I also filed legislation recently to make sure that trains don't stop for more than 10 minutes. Otherwise, they're going to suffer some heavy penalties. So we are working on it, but things regrettably don't happen overnight. And I can tell you that they can more fully explain, but whether or not the train stops is really not the question. It's just the train going by. It doesn't really matter whether it's because they're blocking the street or just going through. The need to go over, it still exists. So I'll let the engineer types explain that a little bit fuller, but that's my understanding.
I think just to add to what the Congresswoman said, I came back here through Leland, and there were two trains back to back, and I measured it's about 14 minutes. When you have that type of a blockage, it becomes pretty difficult to mitigate any type of traffic. There are a couple other questions you'd asked about BRT versus LRT. I mean, BRT is more cost efficient, delivers equal amount of service. If you get in the vehicle, it's pretty much accessible. We've done a lot of engagement to kind of make people aware of what that vehicle looks like. And it's also zero emission vehicles is what we're basically planning. You'd asked a question about construction. We're really aware of all the work that's planned with NHHIP and a number of different projects. We're working closely with TxDOT. I want to phase this project such that we cannot eliminate impacts, but we're going to try to minimize them so you can actually get about their corridor. Not only local traffic's maintained, but any through traffic basically can actually flow during construction. We anticipate about a 5-year construction time frame at this time. And to open in 2028.
All right, and my bill, by the way, it's 10 minutes. They cannot block a street for longer than 10 minutes. And I think yours was how much? 20?
Just
Almost
today,
20.
there are two back-to-back trains, there were 14 minutes.
14 minutes. And I've seen some trains, it's not just here in Houston, but in Galena Park and some other parts of my district, that they block for 45 minutes to sometimes an hour, especially if it's on a weekend. So way over there with a black mask on. You, sir, or ma'am, I can't.
Ma'am, I've spoken before, and one thing that grabs me with Metro is the fact that, yes, all of us are for mass transit and we want it, but why do you always have to just take everything? Meaning that, you know, if you improve the roads that we have now, that we can share the roads with you. You know, if you put more of your buses and you stagger, and you don't have to take all these lanes. You know, you're taking lanes and you're only going to leave us with 2. That's also a concern that we have, is that every time y'all get it, y'all just swallow up your real estate. And I'm not just talking homes. I'm talking about the boulevard that we love, that we have here. I've spoke before. I've been in this neighborhood for at least 4 generations. And I plan to pass it on. And I've said this over and over again. And you're making it to where it's not my home anymore. You know, every time Metro takes a project, you just engulf whatever it is around you. You don't think about the impact that you're having on all of us. You're here to represent us and to move us along and stuff like that, but you're just crushing us. You know, look at what you did downtown when you made the rail going there on Main Street. People still can use that lane, but you're going to come in here and just take. That's my problem, is when you do that. And we also talk to y'all, because I've been to a couple of your meetings and stuff. They're going to do some stuff over on Sampson. You're going to have a project over in Jensen. Why don't y'all talk to yourself? It's like the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand when it comes to your construction. Do the project once. If you're already going to do something on Jensen, you know, put this together. Don't be greedy with the money. This is our tax dollars. You know, use it efficiently.
Shri. And ma'am, I can tell you that I will do my best to make sure that they use it efficiently and effectively and for the purposes for which we allocated the dollars. That's our oversight responsibility. Well, they hear from me. You can check with Mr. Lambert. Right.
I know that's a separate issue, but it all, it's all of a
Right.
problem. And the
All
fact
right.
that Metro just takes it, it's like, come up with a better plan.
So Shri, did you have a respond to her question?
I was just going to touch upon just the comment about why do you have to take lanes? And when you have mixed flow, it basically results in a lot of safety issues, especially in downtown. We're going to basically convert that into an exclusive lane, looking at all the history of allowing regular traffic to mix with transit vehicles. So that's one of the many reasons why you want to have a separate lane for transit.
I just want to make a general comment and in utmost respect. What we're trying to deliver is a program that was approved by the voters in the Houston region back in November of 2019 by almost 70% of the voters in the region. And we said back then, and that took about 3 years to work with the region to get community input. This is not something we did overnight. It's not something we've come at the last minute. We're now at a point in time where we're now focusing on specific projects. And a specific project that's 25.3 miles, going from the West Chase all the way through Texas Southern University, University of Houston, Houston Community College campuses, ties into 40 bus routes, ties into all 3 rail lines, and really gives us an opportunity to connect people to jobs, education, healthcare, and all the things that they need to do. We recognize that when you begin to really hone in, you begin to get focus back from respective communities. So we look forward to the dialogue, but I want to make sure it's very clear. This is not something Metro just embarked upon. Going back to 2017, we had almost 3 years of meetings across this entire region. And in 2019, we got almost 70% of the vote for a plan that said, this is what we need to do as a region to improve multimodal transportation, whether it's a person walking, riding a bike, using transit, or for that matter, driving. Metro also committed to continuing a general mobility program that up to 25% of our 1-cent sales tax goes back to the city of Houston, Harris County, and the 14 multi-cities that are in the Metro service area that they can use to improve transportation projects. Since that program started, over $3 billion have gone back to those communities to really build transportation options again, whether it's someone walking, biking, using transit, or driving. So I want to just say that in the context, this program has been engaged since about 2017. We're now getting to the point where we're dealing with a specific project that really gets back into the neighborhoods. And that's why we really appreciate your coming out. We really appreciate the feedback. And we'll try to do the best thing we can to deliver a project that really serves this entire region.
Okay, right there, you've got a bracelet or watch. Sorry.
So, I commend the Eastwood Civic Association for getting the word out about all this. I live on the other side of Harrisburg, and we haven't gotten any information about this. And I'm lucky to just have run into people that have told me about these meetings.
So I want to know what the plan for public outreach is going forward. Obviously, I think this construction is going to be very, impactful on the neighborhood. How are we going to find out about it? And, how are you going to reach out to us? Because it's not happening right now.
All right, Mr. Lambert will come back up.
Well, we'll continue, and we may not have hit the mark. As we heard the last time, we heard some very constructive criticism. Perhaps there's better things we can do. I talked about the 20 public meetings we had, both in English. We had 2 in Spanish, only in Spanish. All the virtual meetings, we did 2 virtual meetings as well. And we sent about 450,000 mailers, allowing the entire 25-mile corridor. So I want to make it very clear, not just in this neighborhood. We had door-to-door flyers. We did 5,000 in this area. We may not have hit the mark. We also did advertising in 3 dominantly Spanish language newspapers. We'll make sure we continue to look at that opportunity going forward. But what I intend to do and recommend to the staff, and we've done this before, that in each of the segments, we will create a community advisory committee that we stay engaged with, because this project is not going to be done overnight. And so we want to make sure we're continuing to engage the community as we move this project forward. That's one step we'll be taking. When we did that with rail projects in the past, it was an opportunity to make sure that every avenue where we could communicate with the residents, there was a team of folks that did that. So we'll make sure we bring that back to the table as well. And then we have taken the very constructive criticism we've gotten to see if there are things we can do better. And we're pretty good about making improvements when we learn lessons of how we can do things better.
Will you see up here? The next question is for you.
Uh-oh.
This next question is for you, so go ahead and stay. Can you waive the 48-hour sign-up requirement to speak on Wednesday since it's already past that?
Yes. If you want to call in tomorrow to speak, call in tomorrow. I think we'll make sure we got the numbers out to everybody. Call in tomorrow up to 5 o'clock. I'd like to close it tomorrow at 5 if we can, because the meeting is going to be Wednesday at 2 o'clock. But call in tomorrow, yes.
So the answer was yes. Do you happen to have the number? I don't have the number.
I'm going to give you a number 713. Somebody raising their hand that can help me? Jose? All right, Aaron's going to help me with that.
4834.
713-739-4834. 713-739-4834. You can call in tomorrow. If you want to call up to 2 o'clock, we'll let people sign up on Wednesday, yes. The meeting with the board is Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock.
All right, moving on to the next card. On Jensen and Lockwood versus Lockwood in terms of an option, rank was very close in score. Why can't this budget absorb the difference?
I don't think it's just about cost. I mean, there are a number of different parameters there.
You need to get closer to the mic.
I believe the question was, why can't you close the gap with the cost? I don't think there's one factor that determines where you go, which alignment you pick. So it's not just a matter of cost. There are a number of different factors that differentiate those two alignments.
Mr. Reddy, you said that Lockwood has the lowest score and which makes it the most efficient for your choice. Jensen was number 2. Now, you also listed 3 criteria: right of way, operating costs, and ridership. So Jensen and Lockwood were both very close to each other. Jensen is more commercial in nature than Lockwood. So that's why I asked the question earlier, how much weight did you give the environment that you're going through, such as a neighborhood versus a commercial area? It makes sense to me that you go about least resistance.
And I think he answered the question, but did you want to add anything to it?
Not at this time. I don't think it's a matter of least resistance. I think the most benefit, right? I mean, there are a number of different factors that go into it. So as a positive analysis, it also takes into consideration not impacting neighborhoods, which I think we've done here also. And we've considered some of the nature of Lockwood in that analysis.
Thank you. With a beard over here with glasses too. I'm sorry, I don't apologize. I know all of you, I'll call you by your names, but
It's okay, no problem. Thank you. My name is Stephen Casale. I'm a resident of Eastwood. And I just want to say that I think it's important that Metro be clear about what it is we're discussing. And I think it's the premise of the conversation has started incorrectly. And that's, should it be an overpass or an underpass versus should this exist at all? And I think the answer to that question is no, it should not exist at all. And I also think that Metro's sort of beating around the bush about this, the state of the project. It's coming down Lockwood. Other alternatives were preliminarily looked at, and there's no time to go back and do the work in a time frame that's going to allow Metro to evaluate alternate routes and submit their application for these dollars. So that's important to state. The other thing I want to state about community engagement is the website where you go to give a comment on this project is confusing. When you finally get to the comment, it reads like it's a writer complaint. The Spanish language option is difficult to find. You have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to find that Spanish language option. And I think that when you're taking tax dollars from folks and you're saying, we're going to come and build this in your neighborhood and divide a major artery in your neighborhood, that the question has to be answered, what good does this do for the neighborhood? And there's little to no good. We've been told, oh, it's going to help flooding. Eastwood doesn't flood. It didn't flood during Harvey. I've lived in the East End 30 years. There is no flooding in Eastwood. We have sidewalks that do need repair. There can be other grants for those propositions. There's a grade separation at Sampson and York that's being planned that was not properly considered or evaluated. Why can't the line go down there? And we continue to ask the questions about why not the alternate, why not another route? And the question comes back down to, or the answer comes back down to, they weren't looked at with sufficient time, and the community was not reached out to with sufficient time to actually evaluate those alternate routes. And now it's too late, and you're getting this down Lockwood, whether you want it or not. So be pleased with an underpass. And I think that's incorrect. And I just want to hear from Metro whether that is incorrect, that the project is going to happen. It's going to happen on Lockwood, and it's going to be an underpass unless the community gets together and stops Metro from doing it.
So what is your specific question?
My question is that true or false? The time is up for exploring alternate routes, and it's going to come down Lockwood, and it's going to be an underpass, or if there's some construction trouble, I presumed it would go back to an overpass. I presume it's not at this point anymore, but that seems to be the truth of the matter. It's coming down Lockwood.
So you want to know if it's true or false?
Is there sufficient time to explore an alternate, or is it true that it's going to happen on Lockwood, and you're getting an
Okay,
underpass?
well, Mr. Lambert's here.
I'm going to recommend to the board of directors that they approve the locally preferred alternative to you go down Lockwood. And it's going to go from West Chase District all the way down that we described on the map, and we can show everybody. They go all the way through West Chase, the West Park corridor that we own, right away there. Come over at Edlow, cuts across on Edlow to go to Richmond, Richmond down to Wheeler, Wheeler down to Ennis, Ennis up to Elgin, Elgin over to Lockwood, Lockwood up to the Tidwell Transit Center. That's what I'm going to recommend to the board approve for a locally preferred alternative. That's the only action we're asking the board to take on Wednesday.
Please raise your hand if you have a question. Please raise your hand. Let's make sure we keep some order. I know we're all anxious. So do you want to raise your hand? And will you please stand up?
So my thing is, it doesn't really matter what we think. It's what you want is what's going to happen. And I mean, what bus do you come in? And what bus do you take from your house? I mean, because you're CEO, so I'm assuming you take.
No, not every day do I take the bus every day.
No.
I'll be very upfront. Because I don't have bus service in the area where I live, to be very candid with you. But again, look, I hear y'all. I hear you very.
Okay, both of you wait till the other, ma'am, you've asked your question. He's trying to answer. So please be respectful and let him give you an answer. But you asked your question. Ma'am, everybody gets one question. Once I get through with everybody and I have time for everyone to ask a second question, we'll come back to you. So Tom, do you have anything else that you want to add? Is that it?
All I want to say is, again, this project has been going on through voter approval and the discussions with the community going back to 2017. The voters approved it by almost 70% for the regional Metro Next plan. We're now taking this project forward, a 25.3 mile project that we expect to get community input. And out of all respect, I understand where you're coming from. But the question was asked of me directly, and I'm not going to dodge it. I said the last time I was here, what are we going to recommend? I'm going to recommend to the board that they approve a locally preferred alternative that has Lockwood as part of the alignment. That's what I'm going to recommend.
Okay, we have another question on the card. What makes you think that one lane of north and south traffic lanes with the freight train are adequate?
So a couple of things we did not touch upon today is on the BRT lanes, we're going to allow emergency vehicles to actually pass through, which is a major issue right now that exists today. So it's going to be better. as regards the specific question about traffic analysis, we've done the traffic analysis, and we're confident between the improvements we're making and also coordination of signal and timing, we can move more people in that one lane. That also meets the ECA's initial letter where it was stated that they'd like to see a lane reduction on Lockwood, which I think we're basically proposing as part of this project.
Thank you. I'm going to try to get one in the back. She's been having, you're wearing, looks like black or navy.
Good evening. My name is Chloe Ruffin. So I'm more progressive. I'm totally not okay with having to be okay with, things that we cannot change. So what I would want is to add on to it. How can we incorporate the people who live in this area, the types of jobs that we're already working, our children? How can we incorporate the neighborhood to participate in the construction, especially the horticulture? We're concerned about the plant life. So this looks like an opportunity for the children to learn, how to do things, for them to learn how to do construction. As a parent and as a woman, we are often not considered for carpenter work. This looks like an opportunity for me to be considered for learning stuff like that. So I would actually propose that you guys add on to the plan and have an initiative that incorporates the neighborhood to directly benefit off of the construction of the underpass. So that way we can elevate, because I heard that this is supposed to benefit the disabilities community, which is a $60 billion industry, if y'all don't know, and it needs to be tripled, okay? Autism is not the children, it's us. We need to fix it, okay? So let's stop fighting and let's add on some solutions to how we can fix this, okay? We have children. They need their parents. They need us to participate. This is not increasing participation. This is dividing. Stop dividing. Let's come together, you guys, okay?
So your question is if they'll consider a jobs initiative to be able.
If I were living in that area, to be offered to come to Metro, to work at Metro. Bring
Okay.
my skills to Metro, or I'm an excellent driver. I'd be more than happy to assist people to get to and from where they
Okay, okay, let's get Mr. Lambert up here. And Tom, will y'all consider hiring neighborhood people for some of this construction jobs?
Short answer is yes, but I'll also say we have job openings today. If you'll come to Metro, you've got ridemetro.org to list all of our available jobs. And if you're interested in looking at more people, come. Let me visit
Ma'am.
with you personally, I will.
Will you visit with him at the end of the town hall so that y'all can connect? The other person in the back, Shannon, turn right.
500 feet from here, and it did flood during Harvey. The first floor tenants had to move out. I am concerned that the underpass will flood, and that'll be a problem because people are going to want to go on the overpass. I would definitely suggest having overpass for all traffic, just like on Harrisburg.
Well, you do understand that Harvey was like one of a kind, extraordinary event. And I think just about everybody's house did flood some.
Yes,
but I've been told even from neighbors, I think someone here tonight said.
Okay,
said-
so
said that,
I wanted
so-
to say that the underpass will flood. The underpasses over here always flood.
Well,
I highly
we
suggest
got your question.
an
I think-
overpass.
I think they've looked at that, and we'll get Shri to respond to your question.
I think if the question is about underpass flooding, floodgates, I think that's an important item, and actually having boots on the ground. I might have spoken about that a little bit in the presentation. A combination of people on the ground and deciding when to shut it off is key. And the full underpass obviously was not an option because it takes a lot of homes. There's no point doing an improvement where you require to take a lot of homes. And as regards the overpass comment, I think we've heard loud and clear and the commitments have been made. We're not going to do an overpass.
Thank you. And this woman right here in blue, it looks like.
I'm a resident of Easton for past 38 years. I can hold it. No, I got it. I can hold it. Okay, thank you. So I don't approve of underpass, overpass, none of that. I've seen Metro put the light rail and it just brought the homeless community higher. And they didn't consider the pedestrians of Houston's East End because there's trees in the center of the sidewalk. Okay, so the people on the wheelchairs that are homeless or any person in a wheelchair has to go into the street on Altic and Harrisburg. So those little minor details, Metro's not even picking up. Okay, so if you're wanting to put an underpass and take away from the lanes, that's increasing emissions. Okay, so when you talk about quality, air, what percentage are we at right now with the cars that are already waiting for the train to pass, and how much is it going to go up with the lanes narrowing? Do you understand what I'm saying? So we have 18-wheelers, cars, and traffic that are idling, waiting for the train. So we take away lanes, more traffic, more emissions in the neighborhood. Like for instance, today there was a train, and I had to take my daughter. I live on one side of Harrisburg, of the railroad tracks. I had to go all the way to Wayside, along with all the other traffic in one single lane on the light rail. Forget going to Emancipation, because then you're going to be stuck in the Emancipation traffic. So it's just like a lose-lose for us. Just put it somewhere else, not within a neighborhood. And I'm thinking, okay, so Metro is wanting to have like a rapid bus and go over because of the train, right? And that's federal. Couldn't we come up with something like, I don't know, this might be a little bizarre, but like an alert system when the trains pass so that we can all avoid it?
Yeah,
even
I mentioned
Metro?
that earlier, ma'am. We
Okay, I
already
didn't- I
have a
didn't get
pilot
that.
project for that for emergency responders.
Okay, so
here in the
anytime,
city.
including the new 8 trains that are coming in, right?
Mhm.
Which is also going to increase traffic. So I know the vote came in 2017, but we have new residents coming in. Could we have a new election for that? And since more of the words coming out, can we re-vote on that? If you're saying that did happen in 2017, that Metro put out? That's my next question.
I don't recall when the vote was, but I'm sure that if you want to petition the Metro and the city of Houston, you can. I really don't know the legal ramifications of that.
Okay, and then my last question. I know you showed us like a rating scale, but rating scales have details of what that numerical value is, and it did not show me what better is.
Right.
Okay, so can you provide that so that us residents can analyze what better is, so that on the next meeting, we know what questions to ask?
Okay, well, I'll have to defer to the Metro team.
Okay, thank you.
To kind of answer your last question about data behind that one slide, we will provide that and we'll put it on the website also. And then a couple of things you mentioned about residents knowing if there's a train blocking. I think there's a way to do that, and we can work with the UPR. And as you're coming southbound, before you come to the Lockwood intersection, there'll be a decision point. You can kind of make a decision as to whether you want to take a different route or go through. Same thing on the northbound approach at Polk. So we're looking at that option, and that'll be just benefit everyone, not just, So I would say it's a number of different trade-offs. If you had an overpass, people would just pass by, but that's not what we want. So we're looking at optimizing all the different parameters, including reducing the amount of emissions, resulting from, say, congestion at a specific intersection. So it's really a trade-off.
Well, we've gone a little bit over time. I see that there's still some hands up. If y'all would please get with my staff and put the questions on the card, I will make sure to get them to Metro and get written responses to you So please give us your email or your telephone numbers so that we can get the responses to you. Anyone else that has any questions, please do the same. Just get a card, put your question down, and then give us your name and address so that we can get it back to you. I did want to just thank you again for being here and showing the concern. And this is what civic participation truly is about. Just so you know, we put this together quickly. Once I knew what my Easter recess was going to look like, we got emails out, we text people, and we made 3 robocalls to your homes. Sorry if that was a nuisance, but I have found that robocalls to the areas around where I do town halls really do work. So again, thank you for being here. I did want to give Danielle an opportunity to make any closing comments that she would want. As you leave, please be careful and have a great Easter weekend. Danielle?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Congresswoman, for hosting tonight and bringing more residents into the fold about these conversations. I am glad that we had the opportunity to hear from Metro again in a short time period. I think there are still questions that this group has around why Lockwood and what the details of an underpass. I look forward to supporting our residents in trying to get all of those answers. In terms of next steps as a civic association, some things that I would suggest, if you're not already on our mailing list, whether you're in Second Ward, Hi Friends, or in Eastwood, please get on our mailing list. You can do so at the Eastwood Civic Association, at eastwoodcivicassociation.org. There's also directions there on how you can sign up to speak at the board meeting on Wednesday. So that's an opportunity for you to express your thoughts on what you've seen here and what's changed over the last 13 days. The Civic Association hasn't taken a position because we haven't heard from our residents on if an underpass design is acceptable. I don't know what our next steps are there right now. This is really fluid. I don't know if we can make that decision between now and Wednesday, but we'll meet as a board and we'll talk about that in terms of next steps, but keep talking to us. That's what's really important here. Next opportunities to do that would be at Spring Fiesta on April 20th, 6:30 to 8:30 on the Park Drive Esplanade, and we hope to continue to have conversations about making Greater Eastwood continue making Greater Eastwood a beautiful and lovely place to live. So thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And it's, as she said, you know, the vote is Wednesday and it's at 2 p.m. So if you want to be heard, please sign up. Remember, they're waiving the notice rule. You can call tomorrow and sign up to speak. And again, as Danielle mentioned, they're voting for the alignment. I mean, where it's going to go, the design, everything is still in progress. So you really need to participate and provide the input so that it can really reflect more of your views. So again, y'all have a safe trip home and have a great Easter weekend. Good night.
Thank you. Well, you know, I guess when